shadow material or just unconscious repressed material. People can actually take aspects of their own awareness, their own mind, their own psyche, and they can judge them harshly and shove them out of awareness. And when you do that, they become unconscious. They become part of your shadow material. And very, very few people escape childhood without some sort of significant shadow material. And we find this in world leaders. We find it, people will often take up a spiritual practice because they have shadow material that's just driving them in really insane ways. And one of the most common things that happens, one of the most common defense mechanisms, is you have some element of you that for whatever reason you really don't like. And it could be because your parents didn't like it, or your peers didn't like it, or you just decided that you thought that was a horrible thing to have. And so instead of working on it, you just denied it, you just disowned it. So let's say you're really over controlling, and that's just a trait that you have. And you sort of shove that out, and that really hyper controlling aspect of you becomes a part of your shadow. And then one of the most common things people do with shadow elements is they project them onto other people. So you're sitting there and you know that somebody is feeling really controlling right now, but it's not you. So it must be your boss. So you project that controlling element of yourself onto your boss. Now, your boss might already be fairly controlling, but now he's got two control elements. He's got his and he's got yours. So now he appears like this massively controlling, like he's looking over your shoulder all the time. You start getting reactive. Maybe you snap back at him, and you're sort of headed along a path where you're very likely going to get fired if you keep something like that up. People do this all the time. If they have a particular drive that they want to really complete a particular task, like a man is out raking the yard or something like that, and he's really getting tired of it. And so he's starting to lose track of his own desire to get this done. And his wife sticks her head out the door and says, finish those leaves. And he explodes at her, because he thinks she's now just pushing him. She's the one that's forcing him to clean the leaves up, and he just explodes at her and yells. Or you can have a sexual impulse, the ones that Freud examined, sex and aggression. So you can have a sexual impulse from somebody, push that out, and then think they're trying to hit on you all the time. You can push anger out of your awareness, think the entire world is mad at you. You'll often then get clinically depressed if something like that happens. So all of these are, you're getting these symptoms that seem real and just caused by themselves, but they're really caused by your shadow material. And one of the most difficult things as people learn about shadow material is it does tend to mean that those things that you really react to in the environment, that you really hate, really can't stand, those are in many, many cases, at least in some degree, that's your own shadow elements. It means you have to admit that, no, wait, you're that person that has all that anger, or you're that person that has all that pride, or you're the person that's over controlling. And it's a very humbling, in some ways quite difficult practice to do. But it also is the source of most of the kind of interpersonal problems that you're having. And so if you were to go to a therapist or something like that, you would end up working on something like that. So one of the things that you can do to help with this whole process that we call cleaning up or reintegrating your shadow elements is simply looking for the people or the things that really, really move you hugely. And it can be, by the way, in a positive or negative way. People can and often do project their positive qualities. And then they end up making heroes out of people, or just admiring them all off the wall, and they just, oh, you're so great, you're wonderful, and they just lost track of a little bit of their own greatness, their own specialness. People do that all the time and end up projecting that onto other people. So they take a first person impulse or quality, they shove it out of awareness into a second person, a you or they or them, and then if that's not enough, they'll shove it all the way into a third person. Oh, it just belongs to him or her, all of them. They're all angry at me for I don't know why. And so the cleaning up process is reversing that. You take, let's say you have a dream and you're projecting your anger and it's showing up in the dream as a monster who's trying to eat you. And you're having this recurring dream and you wake up, it's a nightmare, and you wake up almost every night with this horrible dream. So if that's some of your real shadow material, then you want to just reverse the steps that created it. And since it was created by going from first person to second person into third person, now it's just showing up as a monster in your dreams. Then reversing that means take it from a third person, make it a second person, and then make that first person. So in this case, and you often just use what Gestalt therapy calls an empty chair. So you just sit down and you have an empty chair in front of you and you put the monster in that chair. So you're taking that third person monster and you're making them a second person sitting right in the chair across from you. And you start talking to it. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? And you ask it a question and then you play the monster and answer. And you go back, ask it another question, then play the monster and answer. And after doing that, until you actually start to feel like, okay, I'm the monster answering, then you make it first person. You actually identify with that monster. One of the things you'll find out is you ask, what are you doing, monster? Why are you here? What are you doing? The monster will say things like, I want to eat you, I want to rip you up, I hate your guts, I'm angry at you. So it's got this enormous amount of anger and aggression. It's aimed at you. And that's why you don't feel aggression. You just feel fear, because that's what the shadow is leading you. And so as you've been going back and you've been identifying with that monster, you start to get in touch with that anger that you weren't allowing yourself to get in touch with. So you're re-owning it, you're taking it back. And then when you finally make it first person, you've re-owned it. And if that was the cause of the monster showing up, the monster will stop showing up in your dream. And the same if you projected some of your greatness or your ability onto somebody else and you put them in the empty chair, start talking back and forth, start identifying with them, and then re-own that quality, then you'll get in touch again with that part of you that's very, very special and that you've just lost track of and projected. That turns out to be a really enormous part of people's lives. They project either positives or negatives onto others. And it's particularly common, of course, in relationships. And many relationships that don't have access to some sort of actual practice of cleaning up or some sort of therapeutic practice, those relationships work only if the shadow elements of both people match up well. So if one person projects their controlling nature onto their partner, and then the partner projects their greatness onto their partner, then they'll just go back, oh, you're wonderful, oh, you do it, therefore do whatever I say. So the person will do whatever they say, then, oh, you're so wonderful. Oh. And they just fit, and they just love it. And they never have to confront their shadows, and things go just wonderfully from that time on.